What's out there? What creates the shadows in the corners or the creatures of the dark? Who are those on the other side? What do they have to say? This is the Gateway Podcast. This is not your normal style of paranormal talk radio. Brought to you live from United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans.
And welcome to this episode of The Gateway. I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. This week in the news, for my news anyway, I know there's a lot of drone activity going on around the world. Has anyone out there seen a drone themselves? I'm just kind of curious. If you have, comment below. I might do a show. I have an opening next week that I'm looking for a topic, and I think that would be good to discuss. If anyone out there has seen a drone personally, reach out to me and I'm going to contact you about it. So this week in the news, I did release the latest Eerie Expeditions magazine issue. It's the second issue ever released. I have to confess, it's really late because I wasn't going to put it out. I was going to stop putting this magazine out. And it's due to some really nasty things that are going on in the paranormal world right now. I've received a couple of threats. Can you believe that? Threats over a magazine. And the reason why I want to talk about this a little bit tonight, because really, guys, when have you ever seen one magazine on any given topic? If you look on the shelves at Barnes & Noble, you'll see at least 10 different magazines on any given genre. There's different news channels, there's different streamers. So for somebody to be that jealous because I started a magazine, come on, guys, you're so much better than this. But it seems like that's what the paranormal has become. And I really don't understand it. And I'm putting this out there to call on paranormal people to be better. Raise your vibrations. You know better than this, guys. So anyway, the new magazine, it's available on eerieexpeditionsmagazine.com. Right now, it's only the digital copy. There will be some hard copies coming out, available in the States only. There'll be about 50 issues that you can purchase online, and they're not terribly expensive. They're about $20. My guest tonight is one of the writers in the latest edition of the magazine. Her name is Jen Sankey. She has a new book coming out, Magickal Manifesting with the Moon, which I love that, by the way. And she has several tarot card decks that she has designed, and she's the director of World Spiritual Association. Tonight, we're going to talk about Llewellyn and all of its ancient traditions. In the latest magazine, there's an entire section dedicated just to Llewellyn. Let me bring her on here. Hi, Jen. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody.
Hey, I just want to get us started with, how did you get into all this?
Oh, boy. Okay. So, a couple years ago, really, I was like 13, 14. So just a couple years ago. That's it. No, it's been a very long time. So as a preteen, I really kind of started diving into tarot. I was always the weird kid that loved all of the, spooky stuff. I have always been able to communicate with spirits. I've been able to since I was a kid. So they were some of my best friends when I was younger. And, as you get older, you start realizing that not everybody has those types of friends. So, it's just, I've always just kind of been that weird kid. And, the older I got, the more I just really dove into, the bibs and bobs of all the things and learning tarot. And then that's when I really started learning about the moon and how all that works and just how everything's connected.
When you were a kid, I have to ask this because everybody who has experienced the paranormal as a young kid, I did myself, you hear so many stories about people being just absolutely terrified. Was that the case for you?
I would say, at first when I realized that not everybody can see them, that's when I was like, and that's probably 6 to 8-ish. Because I would hang out, with, human people and friends, and I'd be like, oh, here's so-and-so. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? So after freaking out many people, I started to be like, uh-oh, what does this mean? And there was no resources. I couldn't, really ask anybody. You can't just hop online, or anything like that. So you kind of just started just feeling it out yourself, I guess. And there were some times that there was this one actually kind of malevolent spirit that would show up. And then I had this, I would call her the White Lady, and she would come every time before, I'm going to say he's a he came. So once she showed up, then I wasn't scared anymore, because she was kind of like almost like my tour guide into all the things. So I really just paid attention to what she was doing. And she was always really good about like, this is good, this isn't good. So that's just kind of how it went for me. So I guess it's like a yes or no. Yes and no.
Well, when did you, okay, I know this is a question that is very stereotypical, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When did you become a witch? I realize this is not, Salem witch trials or anything like that.
Right. I guess I always kind of was one. I think I just was, because again, I was, the kids were playing Barbies, and I was out in the woods mixing potions and looking for the fae. I was, trying to see what was going on in all the dark corners when everyone else was turning the lights on. So it was just kind of, I don't know. I guess I just always was. And I don't think I even realized that until I really started learning and curating my own practice as a teenager. And then you start realizing like, wait a minute, this is all kind of just coming together for me. It's not as new as I thought it was.
So when you were becoming, when you started practicing, was it, you just started practicing based on internal knowledge? Did you have to do a lot of study with this? Was it a lot of spiritual growth? What did it all entail?
It really was a little bit of everything. Being able to, I would go to the library, and of course the metaphysical section was like this big. So, and people would check out those books and they wouldn't come back because you can check it out a couple times. So anytime I got one, I honestly just copied it in a notebook because I knew I probably wasn't going to see it again. Don't tell anybody that. Don't tell. But I think by really reading and seeing the structure of that was helpful to me to kind of structure my own, if that makes sense. So it was just, I noticed like I was, maybe I was reading, we'll say the moon again, and I'm like, oh, okay, so there are phases. And I knew that, during this time of the moon, I felt this way, and this time I felt that way. But knowing the actual phases, knowing like how to put it all together and why you felt different emotions at different phases of the moon helped me to really kind of figure out what worked for me, what didn't work for me, because there was a lot of books and even people that I talked to, and it just really didn't vibe with me. But it was good to know that information so that I can really, figure out what was good, but also doing it in a non-judgmental way. Because I think just being a witch in general is putting that judgment down. And really, if somebody's doing something that could be harmful to themselves, if burning candles unattended, like something silly, yeah, you want to step in. But for the most part, it's really why a lot of people step into witchcraft or pagan religions is because they do want to have their own religion of their own. If you even want to put the word religion, I mean, that's kind of a strong way to put it, but it's really, they are, and a lot of those people are breaking away from super structured religions too. And they want to have that freedom to really go into the spirituality of it all without having the shame, the guilt, you have to do this or that and whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think, and I was alone a lot when I was a kid. Like I my parents were kind of there, here, wherever. So it kind of gave me that time too to really just figure out what worked for me.
So there's such a vast string of information out there around witchcraft. You have like the voodoo, you have Gerald Gardner's Wicca, you have just so many different aspects of it.
Yeah. Now
with that, they almost kind of created their own dogma in a way with a lot of these different groups. Can you talk a little bit about some of the gatekeeper kind of stuff that's going on and ways to kind of avoid that, and to, if for somebody who's just starting out in witchcraft, where do they look, and what do you suggest on how they get started in this?
I think most people that are starting on this path usually have one thing that they're really interested in, whether it's crystals, whether it's tarot, astrology, but not all astrologists are like into witchcraft or whatever. But I mean, it's one of the little gateways there. So I think just really candle magic too, candles and that kind of thing. So I think just really finding that one thing, so we'll say crystals, and just start reading about it and start researching it, and then start using them. The best way to do stuff is to do it. So I think, and reading, and just reading all of the books, not just this book or that book, because like I said before too, it really helps you to curate your own practice. And, a lot of people or witches, they have a grimoire, which is basically just a really big journal with all your stuff in it. Some people just do online ones now. I personally like to physically write if I can when I'm doing that type of thing. So there's so many ways that you can go about it, but really just writing down your thoughts, your feelings about it. What do you believe in? What makes you, open up, and what really taps into your spirituality. And by, trying, just slowly going out and maybe finding people, and to find people, you want to make sure, that they do have a background. There is some meat behind what they're saying, because there's a lot, like, of course, like TikTok or whatever. It's like it's like the Wild West, and there's just a little bit, and there's so much. If you do this, this is going to happen. If you do this, this is going to happen. And I think just not trying to get lost into all of that, and really just keeping it about you, and not worrying about what everyone else is doing and how they're doing it. And, if you go on Instagram and these people have beautiful, rituals going on, or altars, or magic, or candles and spells and whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do that, or I can't be a witch, I can't do that. Well, back it up. Just take baby steps. You have time. And that's another thing that a lot of us, and something when I teach tarot, I always say, like, you're not going to learn this overnight. Like, it takes time, and that's okay, because we're so used to having quick information, everything right here, right now, that we get lost in that too. And then if we don't learn all the things in a week, then we're a failure, and that's not it. It takes time to build a practice. It takes 21 days to build a habit. So you have to give yourself a little bit of grace and really start paying attention to everything around you, and being really mindful. Mindful just to, maybe certain smells, just really your senses. Is there, is a red bird showing up every day? Write that down. And when you see that red bird, how are you feeling? What did it mean to you? Write that down, because it will come back when, your practice is really starting to come together. Learn magic colors, like for candle magic, or, any other type, what does red represent? What is blue, green, all of those things. But if it also gives you that freedom too, that if you see like a red candle and someone's like, oh, it's definitely, it's for love and lust and all of that. But for you, it really means like, revival, or, bringing out the best in you and igniting your own fire, then you go with that. And that's okay too. but it's always good to know the basics, of anything. And there's so many books out there that give you the basics of things, of the basics of how to do a ritual, the basics of how to do a spell. And all of this, actually, all of that too is in my book that's coming out. I really wanted it to be for somebody who really is interested in doing moon work, really interested in manifesting and really diving into a practice. And that's what I did with this book. I added everything I can think of, and each phase has like a ritual and a spell. So as you're working through, you're also learning how to do these things, so you can apply to other areas that you want to work on.
So my question is demographics. So I live in Las Vegas. We're in the middle of the Mojave Desert. So a lot of stuff isn't available to us, like mugwort and a lot of these other ingredients that they were using for Wiccan spells or even voodoo spells on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. Does it really matter what the ingredients are, or is it more?
For me, I like to use what is around me. I really like to try, especially when you're first starting, just use what's around you. Mugwort is really good for insight, psychic abilities. So research a little bit. What in your area can be used for that? Use that. And then, over time, you'll start kind of building your little, witchy curio of things. And, you could get like dried herbs or, if you're super adventurous, you can get a little greenhouse and start growing them. And there's, one of those things. And that's something that you do, because that's like mugwort. I have so much mugwort. It's like all over my house in Massachusetts. It's like, it's just everywhere. It's so easy to grow. It's actually the mint family. So it's like, like mint is like, it grows like crazy. It's kind of like a weed. So, if you want to grow mugwort, it's super easy to do. Or you just buy, you could get like little tiny things of it, because you only need a pinch. You really don't need a ton of things. And as you're going along, use what you have around you, and then, start branching out a little bit when you're more comfortable, and just get little things here and there. You don't have to go and spend $5,000 on a whole bunch of herbs that you don't even know where you're going to put them all. Just kind of, pick and choose little things. And pumpkin pie spice is like an amazing abundance spice. What's in your cabinet? Basil can be used for that. Basil is good for you can be replaced for mugwort if you want. Really, even if in your store, there's definitely some things there that you can use. Rosemary is great for everything. I love rosemary. So,
That stuff grows all over the place. I have a really large bush right outside my door, actually, of rosemary.
I love that.
It grows everywhere here.
Yeah, see, that's how like mugwort is on the East Coast. But I mean, God, the rosemary, you can even use that. You can use that in place of the mugwort. You can use it. It's for protection. You can use it for cleansing. You can use it on candles. You can do so much with it. So you already have like, bam, magic everything right outside your door, Yeah.
I guess the desert witchery thing comes into play here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so many things. Definitely. Definitely.
So the big holiday coming up, winter solstice, otherwise known as Christmas, and it's got several names now. Yoli, winter solstice. So where do we even start with this? You wrote a really great article for the magazine. And you incorporated all of the spooky sides to Europe's traditional winter solstice, which I absolutely love. You have that, I forget the name of the cat, the evil looking cat.
The Yule cat. Yes, the Yule cat.
Who belongs to the witch.
He's the murder floof.
There's so many characters that people don't realize. Everyone thinks Christmas is a Christian holiday.
Right.
I've got sad news for you guys. It's really not. There's nothing Christian about Christmas.
No.
Until the Romans come in with Christianity.
Right. It's true. And I was reading this article a while ago, and I can't remember where it was from, but they were saying that they were pretty sure Jesus was born during the summer. So
Yeah.
when they were coming in to go ahead and, try to get all of the pagans, in the hills to cooperate, they literally moved his birthday. Now I'd be pissed if someone moved my birthday. Like, whoa, hold up a minute. Like, we're committing grand sins. Like, we look at someone and that's it. But no way, you guys can just move someone's birthday. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, there's, and I'm the one that's always, like I said, going to add a spooky element to pretty much anything. And that is my one of my favorite things about this season is all of the spooky Yule friends we have.
Yeah, so everyone that's sad about Halloween ending, guys, it's just started. Winter solstice is probably the most scary holiday out there if you really think about it.
It is, because most of them want to just like slice your stomach open, eat your insides, behead you, cook you, and it's like, oh, okay. And we're worried about like, spirits running around on Samhain. I don't think so. I don't think we should be worrying about them so much.
So you started out with the wheel in the article.
Yeah.
Can you kind of break down the differences between a Sabbath and a, what's the word I'm trying to think of? The Sabbath, and then there's 4 solstices, isn't there?
Yeah. The different, I mean, they all interconnect, and basically it is breaking it down into these different Sabbaths, which all happen at a certain time of year. And a lot of them correlate with the moon. Because back then that was their big timekeeper, was the moon. So you have the 4 seasons. And then you have the different Sabbaths in there. And it was actually just their time to celebrate and honor, whichever, holiday it was, like, or whatever was happening. So we have harvest, and you have, fall, harvest, autumn, moon, all that stuff. And they had to make sure, their belief too was that if they didn't recognize these change in seasons, if they didn't give thanks at the end of these seasons, that something bad would happen, because that is, a lot of their traditions, hence all of the Yule creatures, was fear-based, because that is kind of also the only way they can control people at that time too. So, you have summer solstice, which is, of course, celebrating, the harvesting of the crops. And that's when everybody was, it's like a big party, everything's going on, everything's growing, and the sun is there and everyone's happy. And then fall is when we take all the crops down and we're getting ready to get into that darker season, and we need to honor and think, and, so next year their crops are working well, work well. Ostara, it's around Easter. It's basically that same area. And that's just all life and the renewing of life and all of those things. So, and then we have Yule, of course. So it all correlates with all of the seasons, with all of the moons, and it's just kind of brings it all together. And it's just a big, it's really just like a big clock. It's like the Big Ben of, pagans.
Well, I think it's really neat. So Christmas is actually winter solstice, and that is to start the new year with the return of the light, correct?
Yes, that is the return of the light, because at that point it is the longest night, the shortest day, and it's when the earth is actually like tilted back away from the sun. So then it's kind of like starting to come back out. So it's that renewal, and okay, we're getting through all of this dark time, but we are already setting our intentions for the new year. We're putting all the hopes, and they're going to have good crops. All of the babies being born will be healthy, and the mothers survive, and all of those things. Yeah.
So I think what the world doesn't realize is this was through all cultures, basically, in Europe, that practice this sort of thing. So there's several witches. There's Grayla. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah. I call her Gryla. I don't know the exact pronunciation of her, but because she's got the little, like, what do you call it? The little thing over her the L or the Y or something. So I don't know how, like, I probably wouldn't be able to say it anyway. Yeah. That's what she is. I'm sure she'll find us if she's unhappy.
And then we have the Italian, I think her name is Befana.
Yeah, La Befana.
Mm-hmm. And then, so those are the two witches that I know of. Then you have the Romanians. They have the bear ceremony where they're dressing up in actual bear furs and things. And it's kind of like Krampus almost. They go out and they parade just about every week through all the villages of Romania. Mm-hmm. And they'll do this until New Year's. And the whole idea is the bear symbolizes things like, I forget, there's a whole bunch of stuff that he symbolizes. But the whole idea is they're chasing away evil spirits for the new year and bringing in the light and positivity.
Right.
Which is actually a really fascinating festival that goes on every year for them.
Yeah, no, and really too, it's just that commitment to doing it, is really cool. And, this time of year too, and I think a part of with Yule, with winter solstice and all of that is a big component I feel like people don't really give a lot of attention to is community. And how important your community is and nurturing that. Especially back then, because they had their village and that was it, and everybody needed to kind of clean slate it and get moving, or else, they, like you said, even like with the whole bear theory of that, like they're just scaring that away, getting rid of it, because they know if they went into the new year with these bad intentions or bad feelings or whatever, that it could possibly come back at them. Which, I guess in a way is like a karma thing. And that's something even way back when they understood that give and take of the universe.
So what was Krampus's role in all of this?
So Krampus is actually he's like, I even wrote in the article, I always think of him like the yin and the yang is Santa or, St. Nicholas really, and then Krampus. So he is the, he's going after all the bad kids that, St. Nicholas was like, nah, Santa said, oh, these kids are no good. He's the one that took care of them. So he was kind of like the bad Santa, I guess. So he would come and he would, and if you, on December 5th, if you put out your, you had to put out white birch, and if it was replaced with coal or then you better watch out because then you did something bad. So that's really what it was. He was just kind of he's the cleaner upper of all the bad kids.
Was it just the kids or was it a communal thing where they were trying to put fear into the adults as well?
Yeah, I think, most of it was for the kids, but I think, if that is just so ingrained into all of these different cultures that even as an adult, you're still going to be a little bit worried. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't want that dude showing up at my door. So I think that, and then they're the ones, like, when they had their, the festivals or, when they did, like, a parade of him, now it's such a big thing. And that's, like, one of the things I want to go to so bad. And I know Maria's doing a tour of it next year, and it's sold out in, like, 2 seconds. I was
Maria,
like, no.
For those listening, Maria is the owner of the tour group Mysterious Adventures Tours.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you earlier. I forgot to ask you before we even got on here how you were connected with her.
I went to Ireland last October. I went to Ireland and we just really connected, and I absolutely adore her and Bob. And so, from there.
What are some of the lore and reasons behind some of the stories associated with the darker side of Llewellyn?
So really, it has to do, again, with keeping people in line. And they know, again, with Yule, it's about letting things go, trying to bring in all the good energy. So it's basically, they scared them into like, you need to be doing these things. So with like the Yule cat, that you had to have a new outfit for Christmas or winter solstice, right? And if you didn't, the Yule cat was going to come and get you. And the reasoning for that was because it was a way to bribe the farmhands to get everything done before the new year, because then they were gifted a new outfit. So if you didn't get everything done and didn't get your new outfit, then sorry, the Yule Cat's coming in. So it really is that. And of course, the Krampus, like behaving kids and that sort of thing. You know, and it really just came down to that. It's just keeping that structure. And a lot of these villages were in the middle of the woods. And, you know, kids are kids and they want to go exploring. It's getting dark at 4 o'clock, you know, especially, you know, when you're on the East Coast. And so it was really to keep them, it was a safety thing as well. It was to kind of keep them close, because at night, you know, all the creatures came out, not just the Yule creatures, but the, you know, the wolves, the bear, you know, all those things.
The bullies.
Yes. All of those things. So that's what it came down to. So it's really protection, keeping people in line, keeping that order, and, you know, trying to keep structure.
You know, there's a lot, I know for those listeners, you're probably thinking there's a lot of coercion going on even back then with these different festivals, and I don't want to so much call it dogma, but in a way it kind of is. But when you really think about it, back then, you have these families that are sitting in crude houses. A lot of them have the thatch roofing, they have flooring that's dirt that they mixed out of clay to form. You're right. They're living out in the middle of the woods in these tiny little villages. So the communal idea of celebrating, that's all you have is your village.
Yeah.
But you gotta wonder, what was it like for them? It's cold. The only kind of fire they have to heat up their house is their hearth, which is why it was so important to have that decorated, because that's where you would have hung out.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I don't know about the rest of Europe, but I know Romania in particular, they're very superstitious. Mm-hmm. Even today, they're very superstitious. Yes. They will not go out at nighttime, particularly in the woods. They're very fearful of different spirits. Mm-hmm. They believe in vampires. They believe in stragolis, I think is what they call them. Mm-hmm. Just all sorts of things. So you had all of that going on, and you kind of can see that in early America.
Oh, for sure.
Settlers, they too were the Puritans.
Yes.
The acting out that they've done, they were a very fearful people. They were put in the middle of the woods, basically, with Native Americans around them, whom they feared and everything. Mm-hmm. I forget where I was going with this, but if you just put yourself in those shoes, you kind of think about being a young kid in the middle of all this, and then hearing stories of Krampus, and you have to get your birch bark out and
right. I mean, what kid has birch bark just hanging out? I mean, you're in the middle of the woods. I get that part. But, you know, even to like build on what you were just saying is they weren't even just worried. They didn't have to worry about what was even just outside their door. It was all the different gods that they also, you know, honored and worshiped, because they needed to also do that. So, you know, we always think like, oh, what did they do? Like, they were too busy worshiping everybody and honoring everybody and making and drawing sigils on everything. So making sure that they didn't get something bad happen to them. Mm-hmm. So it was, you know, it unfortunately, like it really was a lot of fear, just because they just didn't know. And they only knew what was told to them in oral tradition, and that was it. So, you know, all of these things came out. And so I do think it's kind of cool now, because all of these, you know, especially all the Yule creatures, you know, they're like so honored now. Like, and there's, you know, like Grillia, she, you know, they have her like decorations of her all over the place, which back then they wouldn't even think of that. You have the Krampus, we have all the parades now with that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and what's funny is a lot of these really came from like versions of these, you know, different creatures or whatever is from Icelandic tradition too. Like they really had an imagination. Like they really like, and you know, and just think if you're up there, it's even colder, you're really stuck. So and again, it's also too, it's entertainment. keep, to keep everybody busy and that sort of thing. But I don't know. There was just definitely a lot of fear. So I'm really glad we got past that.
If somebody today wanted to practice, say, like a Viking traditional Yule, what do you suggest that they do?
I think that they definitely should do a little bit of research because there's a lot of the runes are involved. They have a kind of like a candle thing that they light for, I think it's 10 days, kind of like a menorah type situation. It's not a menorah, but just so you have an idea. And each day represents a different rune. And so they light it, a Yule log. A lot of people can do that. That's easy to do. And if you don't want to burn anything, you can always just make the cake. That's always an option. I'm always here for cake. So there are so many ways to celebrate. And again, you don't have to do anything crazy. You can really just work with what you have. And, your intention is key, but also your attention to what's going on around you is key as well.
How do you decorate your own house?
So I do a lot of really, I guess like natural decorations. My house in New York is a log cabin, so it's kind of like built for evergreens everywhere. So that's, that works. I usually will do the orange slice ornaments too, and do those. And so I will do that. And then I set an intention with each one. Sometimes I'll even write on them in marker, do that. And we have a Yule log. We have like a Yule, Yule, table centerpiece with red candles. I like to do that. You can do there's so many things. Like every year it changes a little bit too, depending. My kids are older now, so when they were younger, though, we used to do a lot of crafts. Making pine cones and all of that. So one thing I really like to do for Yule, winter solstice night, even when the kids were younger, we would decorate like a pine cone, and we would kind of set our intentions for the next year and put it into a fire. Like we would go have a fire outside, even if there was snow, like we just make a fire. And then, doing that, because it's again, just that return of the light and really focusing on that and focusing on what you want to be, where you want to be, what you want to be doing, how you want to be feeling when the light returns.
Do they use a lot of evergreens in this, don't they?
They do. Yes.
What's the reason behind that?
Well, because I think, a lot, again, we have that Icelandic culture. We have a lot of in cold areas, and it's using what is around you. And evergreens is definitely one of the things that are around you. And they would decorate evergreens outside with fruit for the gods, but mostly the animals would go and eat it. But they were also giving back. So that was also kind of representing their area and giving that honor to the area and bringing good luck and into the home as well, because evergreens were considered good luck. And doing that. So it's really, again, just using what was around you. And that was what was around them. And that's something that just kind of came through until modern times.
And that idea sort of came from Greek mythology in a way, didn't it? With who was the god? I can't remember. There's a god that is represented here, and I can't think of his name.
Odin.
Odin.
Yes. Odin. Yes. So yeah, because Yule for them was Joel. I'm not sure if that's exactly how to say it. It's Jol. So that was their how they represented in Odin. And if you look at the pictures of Odin, he kind of looks like Santa Claus. So it's just like another thing. And it's like, as we went through and different depending on where you lived, in the summer so you have Odin in the winter, and then in the summer it would be the Green Man, or what they would call, and the name just totally escaped my brain.
Was that like the Holly King?
Pan. That's what it is. Yes, Pan was what they represented for the Green Man. So yeah, so you have the Yule King, and you have the, like the Summer King, kind of, and that's how they represent.
Are they the same guy? Just in
No, they're two different. So like one takes over, and then when some like winter's over, then the other one takes over. And there isn't any sort of competition with it. That's just kind of like how the cycle goes. And it's just, again, just way to mark the seasons and the way, because they needed to honor. So, and they were very nature based. So it just made sense to do it that way for them.
You kind of see that with the Bacchus character too, with Mardi Gras and Carnival.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
So does that mean the pagan ideas extended way into Greek mythology?
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of trails back to that. And then as people traveled and settled in different areas, like it just morphed into different things. But there's a common thread through all of them, which is cool. Like that's a cool thing to know that, in all these different cultures, there was still this common thread of Yule being about hope, renewal, and, taking the time to really think, yourself, your community, all of those things as you went into a new season.
So I spent the last, 15 years living in the South before I ended up in Vegas. And good grief, even the South, they have, they use holly a lot. They use, I forget the name. There's a big flower that grows down there. And the name escapes me. I can't even believe I forgot the name of this flower. It's my favorite flower. But they're trees, and they're evergreens. They don't turn. The tree does not turn brown or drop its leaves. So they use the leaves off of that a lot. And then they also use like the regular pine needles and things like that.
Oh yeah.
And pineapples. You throw pineapples in the mix.
Yep.
And of course the oranges.
Yeah, the oranges always show up, and apples. Apples always show up too.
Yeah.
Oranges and apples. Yeah, I mean, and it is just, and even if you just take it to the US and you see how the season, Christmas, like how it's celebrated differently just in different parts of the US, and that's, it's kind of like how that happened just all over the world and just spread out. And it's cool. I mean, I think it's very interesting. I love learning about new things like that and seeing how people celebrate and, what makes them do what they do and all of that good stuff. But again, it all comes kind of down to that same, base idea. Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. Are there any other creatures that we're missing? Or that
oh my gosh. Like literally we could talk about all the creatures in a whole nother hour. So Grelia, she actually has, I think it's 13 sons, the Yule lads. So they're kind of like these gnome things, and they all have a different function. Like one goes in, that's a trickster. This one steals the milk. This one does this. So, and they're not nice. They're terrible. They kind of like will herd the kids for her. So she's busy. Like she's got the cat. She's got a giant cat. She's got a bunch of evil kids. Like, I don't know what she did, but she scored big with that. Oh my gosh. There's so many, and there's just different versions of, like Krampus, like we talked about too. And, you can bring the Fae into it. You can bring, there's just so many. There's so many. And most of them during Yule are like gnome creatures. they're just like very active that time of year, I suppose. I don't know. They're bored too, I guess.
Is this where the idea of elves come in?
Yes. Yes.
Santa Claus. I was wondering about that.
It is, yeah. And they took that and made them Santa's elves. But normally they could care less about any of that business. Like, I guess they just needed to stick them somewhere and that worked. but they are more about but there are elves that that people had in their homes that were helpful, like if you think of like Dobby, like Harry Potter, like a house elf. So they actually would leave gifts and stuff out for the house elves this time of year to help keep everything else out. So that guy was living large as that. He was getting all the gifts. So he kept everyone away.
That's funny. Well, back to the how many sons? 13?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were not good. They were definitely if you look up the Yule lads, you'll see one like on a goat or something, and the other one's stealing food, and the other one's like poking a kid in the eye. Like it's chaos.
So she's supposed to control the entire world, but she can't even control her 13 kids.
No, she's about it. She just was like, yeah, go do whatever you want. And, find that, they were kind of like her eyes and ears too. So they would be like, oh, hey mom, this kid over here is not behaving. Like, I'm going to poke him in the eye and then come back and get you.
Oh, good grief. What did the Yule lads symbolize?
I think, I'm trying to, I almost think it had to do almost like, like just different sins. And I think that when one came to you and, you have like, maybe one was like being gluttonous or whatever and ate all the pie and you got in trouble for it. Like it's similar. Okay, well, that's what you were doing. It wasn't their fault. It was actually your fault, So I think it really kind of symbolized just that type of thing. And again, it's just that it's the control. I guess they needed control. I don't know. Maybe everyone was just feral and running around. Who knows?
That's so interesting because you see those same themes even in Christianity with the 7 deadly sins.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, a lot of times in Christianity, they took those little bits from the pagan religions to make it more familiar so that they could convert. Like, oh, hey, see, we have this too. Come over our side, And they did that with a lot of stuff. And even with Easter is Ostara. And, we have, Easter eggs. Well, if that's what happened, like Jesus being crucified, all of that, like where do eggs come from? Oh, that's right. A pagan thing. You know what I mean? So that's where that comes in. So it's very interesting how they, I'd love to like be a fly on the wall at that table of the meeting of all of these, old white religious men that decided all of these things because we know, and they were probably drunk. So we know that this is
good. It's just interesting how it all came together like that.
It really is. It is. And it's really one of those things like just to dive into and really kind of see what is behind Santa, because Santa really wasn't popular until the late 1800s and didn't get super popular until the Industrial Revolution in the 1920s. Because then they were making all this stuff and they needed to sell it. So, oh yeah, there's this Santa. Let's use this guy.
Thank you, Coca-Cola.
Exactly. Yep.
They kind of derived the idea of Santa wearing a red suit and being a big guy that runs around and eats cookies.
Yep.
But was his character originally based on something else?
Yes, it was actually based on Saint Nicholas. And he was born into a very rich family. And as a child, he lost both his parents. And so they sent him to the seminary to go ahead and that's where he lived. And so he grew up and he became a priest, and he was able to inherit all of his family's money, but he didn't want it. He was very committed to his faith. So he went ahead and built churches, schools, hospitals. He helped families, like everybody in the village. Like he was the go-to guy, and he helped everyone and never asked for anything in return. And so he was always gifting things and, not asking questions. He didn't have, and then Krampus came into it. But as a person, He was very, 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 very giving. And so he was canonized after his death and sainted and all of those things. So that is actually on December 6th. So you have December 5th, it's like Krampus Day, and then December 6th is St. Nicholas Day.
That's
so
very
yeah. So like if you made it past, Krampus Day and you woke up and it was St. Nicholas Day, like you were good. You're good to go.
If you didn't receive the coal.
Right. And if you didn't get pulled out of your bed and whipped at night, then you were good. So yeah. So he was, and they based him off of him. And just that jolly giving type of person. And, even with his outfit, the robes, the priests, it was Catholic priests, and they wore those robes. And in the winter, they had kind of the, muffing, I don't know what to call it there. So you see again how that kind of turned into that modern version of who Santa Claus was.
You also see that with the Christmas story as well, with the three wise men who gifts Jesus the myrrh, frankincense, and I forget what the other one is.
Mm-hmm.
But you have that idea, that symbolism of gifting there too.
Yeah. And again, on the longest night, we're gifting, and just showing appreciation and honoring. And, we can do that now. And the focus should really, really be on honoring yourself, I think, first and foremost, because we don't do that enough. But, honoring those who are around you and who stick with you, and, just letting them know and just showing that extra appreciation.
I just want to throw this out there. They gave Jesus, the wise men who were magical or something. Wise men, how could they not be magical, right?
Right.
Jesus, 3 gifts that are over the top magical. Myrrh, frankincense, which is in every single Wiccan spell that I could think of.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean, really, it's all of those things. And like, oh, wow, look we're using all this stuff in spells. And, what is really interesting too, is that now, they study, all the incense and the herbs and the vibrations of everything. Those are very spiritual herbs. And like that, they knew that even back then without all of these, fancy tests. I really, again, it's that, they just, sometimes they just knew, and I think that is a really cool thing. And I think just paying attention to that, even if you aren't Christian, if you aren't, and you don't have to be. And I think that's the thing too, is that just because you want, learning about it, and even more to say, like when I'm talking about just learn everything, read about everything, read about different religions, learn about them and see, because it also helps you to make yourself more relatable to people. And that is a magical thing. And being able to understand people and seeing their perspective is really important. And I think by being able to take that step back and, you have all these tools at your disposal, and they're way easier to get now than they were then. Way easier. You didn't have to go past the Yule Cat to get your frankincense.
or the 13
the Yule lads.
The Yule lads.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, we are already at the bottom of the hour. I can't even believe it.
That went so fast.
Where can people look for your book?
It is coming out. My publisher is Llewellyn. So really, if you just follow me at Stardust Wanderer Tarot, I'm super active on Instagram. I'm on all the things. If you just put it in Jen Sankey into Google, it'll bring you to wherever you need to go. So I'm in edits right now. It's coming out the end of next year. So hopefully in the next couple of months, I'll have the book cover. I'm like anxiously awaiting that. But, we are in the holiday season, so nothing's happening. Nothing's moving until at least next month. I know this.
Yeah, I have a book that's coming out too, and it's just sitting.
Yeah, no, and it's like you can't do anything. You're like,
can't do anything about it. Yes.
No, you're waiting on it. So that will be next year. But I do have my deck, Enchanted Forest Felines Tarot, just came out with Llewellyn. So that's out now. So if anyone likes cat tarot decks, great Christmas presents. And then I have a self-published Stardust Wanderer Tarot, which is all about space pirates, gods and goddesses. It's very sci-fi, and that's a lot of fun too. But you can find all of that on my socials.
I have to ask this question because I'm curious about it. When you create your own tarot deck,
Mm-hmm.
you actually do all the artwork too? Like, how do you come up with all the symbolism and ideas?
So really most tarot decks are based off the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So that has like kind of the basic symbolism and all the basic stuff. And then people make different versions of it. So that's basically what we do. And I just come up with an idea and then I write it out, like the story of it, like how I want it to look and all of those things. There's 78 cards in a deck. So then I have to write a description, an artist description for each and every card. So every card that I make, I write down, like for the cat deck, what kind of cat it was, what is it holding, what does it look like? If it's a people deck, what ethnicity are they? What size are they? What color is their hair? What are they wearing? It's very detailed, and I am not an artist, unfortunately. I wish I was, but for Llewellyn, they find an artist and they select a couple, and then you get to choose, which one really is the vibe you're looking for. So then, she lives in Croatia, actually. She did my cat deck. And so I send over all of those descriptions. Like it's like 10 pages long. It's because it's so detailed. And then she will start just making sketches, and then she'll make like a rough sketch and she'll send it to me. And, I'll be like, yeah, this is good. This isn't, let's do this. Let's do that. Or she'll be like, Jen, you had way too many ideas for this one card. I can't fit it all in. So then we have to, rehash a little bit, but, and then she goes ahead and draws the card, and then I approve it. And then we do that for 78 cards. It can take 2 to 4 years, to create a tarot deck.
Wow.
So yeah, if you think about that, like all that art, and then you have the art for the card back, and then you have the art for the box, and then the book. So I write the guidebook, and that goes through every card and gives kind of the meaning of the card. And usually I will do an upright and reversed, and then it gives you a little story about the deck, some like tarot spreads afterwards. And a tarot spread is just like ways to place the card. So card 1 means this, card 2 means that, card 3 means this. And and then Llewellyn puts it all together and off we go.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for spending the time with me tonight. It was a great conversation about.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Thanks.
Thank you. You've been listening to The Gateway, your portal to the unexplained, the mystical, and the magical of Llewellyn. Broadcast live from United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. I'm your host, CL Thomas. So next week, I am not going to be here. I'm going to have to play a rerun because I am undergoing some surgery. So I will not be here, but there will be a show. Maybe I'll try to get something recorded within the next few days for you guys. But just a reminder, EerieExpeditions.com. I have a new magazine out, and the second edition is available. It's going to be available in print too, but right now the digital is out, and I think it's only $6. I would love your support. So it's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time.